so this morning we're looking at MongoDB, and I'm not going to talk about the setup because you can either just go on the official MongoDB site and the setup documentation is pretty good, or we did a video a couple of months ago as well, just on our YouTube channel, so MongoDB Atlas setup, and that should guide you through most of it. And then usually it's just the little odd operating system quirks, right, that we have to deal with, so I can probably deal with those better one-on-one. Like I know Kelly had a problem running the shell from the command line, so maybe just need to look at that one-on-one, but this should get you almost all of the way there. And then once you've actually managed to set up a database, you're probably going to be able to see it on Mongo Atlas, so something like this, and you'll have your projects on the top left, and I'm just going to pick up the form demo that we looked at the other day. So that database has probably got a lot of duplicate data in at the moment because we were sending lots of similar requests to it. So if we have a quick look in our collections.
So Atlas is the cloud-based one, not the...
Yeah, so Atlas is cloud-based, absolutely, yes. It's not a local one, it's just an instance. Yeah, okay, so we've got lots of data in here, right? I think if we scroll down, we can finally get to... Got Queen of Sass from Vince, there we go. But remember we were doing like Porrick, Chewy, things like that at the end. So some of that data might have made its way there. Or maybe not, right? We didn't have the database connected, but as you can see, we've used this form before. Remember the form that had user, age, email, and gender. Yeah. So I'm just going to pick up that example and see how we actually connect to a database in a Node application, because that's the first step. Obviously, you will need to do. We'll look at sending data to the database and then retrieving data from the database. This might be a two-part series depending on how long it takes and how many questions we have. But the first thing would be to actually make sure we can connect to our database via our app. So if I go back to the overview, maybe if I just drop down there. We should have this little connect button. So essentially we've got three ways to connect to our database. We can connect via the Mongo shell, and you can run any Mongo shell just once it's installed on your path by typing Mongo. Oh, not MP Mongo, but Mongo. Still can't type it. Mongo. Alright, and that will connect to the shell, but that is failing initially because I haven't started the Mongo background process, the server essentially, which I believe is just MongoD. That's failed as well, that's good. Why did that one fail? Maybe it needs a sudo? Let's see. Okay, so I think that is now up and running, so you have to run it in two parts if you're running in the shell. You run the Mongo server, the background process, and then you should just be able to type Mongo, and that enables you to enter commands directly into the terminal there to connect to your databases. So that's if you're working just via the command line and you're not using any GUI or you're not using an application to connect. So it's a good way to test that you've definitely got some databases up and running. So we can check just via the shell that we can connect to the database. So that's usually the easiest way to do it, right? If you've got the shell installed on your computer, and you could do that just by Googling MongoDB Community Edition somewhere. Might need a download. Yeah, so if you go to the download center, then it's essentially going to be the server, the MongoDB Community Server Edition there. Select your operating system. So I'm on Linux, but if you're on Windows, you're on, must be a Mac version somewhere, yeah, 64-bit Mac version there as well. So just select your current version, download it, install it as you would any other program on your machine, and part of that bundle is going to be the shell tools, yeah?
Okay, so just to get it, because I need the local one on the, so I just need to go to the Atlas and then just connect it directly. That would.
So if you've created a database, yeah, then to actually connect it, then we're going to show you now just how to do that. But if you've got the shell installed, yeah, you've got the Mongo shell and the Mongo server installed via the community server, then yeah, the next step we're just going to do now, so hopefully it will make sense. So you select your project, and that will bring up what database you've got there. Click on the connect little button there, and it will give you 3 options for connecting. You can connect with just the shell, so the command line interface. You can connect with Compass, which is a graphical user interface that Mongo created to make it easier to connect with and view your data if you're not a fan of the command line. But you're all developers, you should be a fan of the command line. And then you've got the option to connect via your application. So in our case, that's going to be a Node application. So we're going to cover these top 2 at least today. Right? We're going to just do this one to test because it's the easiest one to test for me. So when you do click on that, just say you have the Mongo shell installed already, if you do, and you can check, of course, your Mongo version at any time. So hopefully I've got the latest version, or quite close to a latest version. How do we usually check what version we have of software?
Dash
Yeah, it depends a little bit, right? But sometimes it's --v or usually --version. I'm going to try. Yeah, so I've got Mongo shell version v 4.0.9, right? So all it asked for was greater than 3.6. So that should be absolutely fine. Then the bit that we're interested in, oh, look, it tells you there what to run, Mongo --version. So that's what we did. And the bit that we're interested in here is the connection string. So you can just copy that, and then all you do is run that connection string in your command line, and you'll be prompted for the password. Oh, hopefully I can remember that. Let's see what we get. So coming back to the shell, which I think was in this one, I can literally just paste that Mongo connection string there. Yes, it's all given to you. You don't have to remember this format or anything like that. Hit enter. Syntax error, missing colon before statement. It's a bit weird, right? If you do the string, surely it should. Maybe because I'm already running Mongo, that was the issue, I think. Can I do it like that? No, let me just come out of Mongo and then run the whole thing. So if I just paste that. No, it still doesn't like it. Any special characters are URL encoded. Don't think we've got any special characters there. So that's still running. Okay, I don't know why it didn't work before, but in a new terminal window it seems to work. Now asking me for my password. Hopefully it's that. No. User's not allowed to do action.
Maybe we need to use sudo.
It's probably me just not remembering my password, to be honest.
What password is that for? From creating down MongoDB when we initially get password? What password is that?
No, it's the password for the form demo database.
Oh, okay. So you would need it to have done that before.
Yeah. No, it doesn't like you doing it again. Wow, okay. Let's see if I've got that pre-saved somewhere. Sorry, guys. So if I hopefully have Compass set up. If not, we'll skip that and we'll go straight to our Node application. In fact, do I have it? No, it's CodeFlix. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what I tried, but... Oh, no. Let's try connecting just via the Node application for now. So let's shut that one. So again, you can just choose a different method, right? And this time we're choosing to connect via Node because that's what we're using here on the course. I'm sure you'll be 3.0 or later. And then again, you've got your connection string, and this time you just have to replace your password actually with your password in that connection string. Where does it go? Well, usually you would save it securely in your env file, right? So that you don't commit this anywhere. And then you would add your env file to your gitignore just to be double sure, make sure you've got a normal.env in there. And that will make sure that when you commit to GitHub, you're not pushing your env file and giving away all your passwords and things like that. I've given away on YouTube, so I've given away anyway, but it doesn't really matter, right, in case of these projects. But obviously, if that was a company project, then please don't commit to GitHub your sensitive data. The connection string, you need to make sure that your database file has access to your connection string. So that, in this case, is my connection string. And you'll see it looks very, very similar to what we just copied and pasted from Mongo Atlas itself. In fact, it's the same, right? Yeah, so just set that as your URL. And then this thing as well, you don't have to write all that from scratch. Mongo Atlas will also give you that, he says. Full driver example, there we go. So if you look at that code and you look at what we're using, again it's very similar, right? At the top we need to make sure we have our dependencies installed. So in the case of Node, that is the MongoDB. how would we install that? How do we install most dependencies in Node? npmi, so we type npmi mongodb, yeah, to make sure we have the MongoDB driver installed. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to connect to the Mongo client. Yeah. So inbuilt inside of that dependency is the driver, and that driver has a connect function that allows us to connect to MongoDB. We're wrapping it inside of a promise because obviously that might take a bit of time. Yeah, so promise is a way of doing asynchronous JavaScript. So if we create a promise, it will start that connection function, and then when we come back over to our main server, we haven't done it yet, but what we're going to do is something like that, right? Connect to the database and then make sure that we can detect all of our routes. So essentially the first thing we're going to do is connect to our database. So I probably shouldn't have had that there to begin with, but so where's the one that I need now? So in other words, you just need a connect function, right, inside of a database file. That's all you need inside your database file to actually establish the connection to the database. Most of it is written for you. You can just copy and paste it from Mongo Atlas, yeah? So all of this sort of stuff will be written for you. The things that you have to get and set are your URL and your database name, yeah? And then when you do your connect function, it ensures that you're connecting to the correct database and things like that. I think this is really one of those things that you just have to do, right? But if you see the code, then you can at least adapt it, hopefully, to your own scenario. So once we've got the connect function, make sure we export it. And then you can import it into your main server file. Yeah, so we just make sure we require that whole file, and then we will have access to the connect function via db.connect. Yeah. So once we have connected, we can make sure that any of our routes that handle or that communicate with the database go inside of this block here, yeah? So we're using our database object that comes back from our connect function to perform various operations. What might we want to do? Well, that's where our basic CRUD operations of databases come into play. And you might want to do things like finding everything in the database. So you see how this is very, very similar to what we've got. db.connect, then take the database object, write our route. This is obviously a CodeFlix example. But in our code, we could yeah, that one would do, I guess. Yeah, we could retrieve user data from the database. Didn't work, did it? So after we connect it to our database, and then we make a GET request to get user data, we look inside of our collection called users. Do we have a collection called users? We better check, right? So usually I'd check this via the command line, but we can of course check it via Atlas as well. Yeah, so there's our database called forms, and there's our collection called users. So we're trying to find, if we just did that empty object, it would find everything inside of the collection. To array would of course turn it into an array. If there was an error, we want to throw that error. If not, we want to send back our results. And on the front end, store user. So if you wanted to display that on the front end, you would of course need to make a fetch request to get user. Yeah, the same way you've made a fetch request to get shows. Do you want to have a go at writing that now? Yes? No? Yeah? So what would be my first step? We can create a brand new file if you want. We can do it from there so that you don't get confused with the other code. So on your front end, I'll just create something called fetch user data. Yeah. How about we make it a component? If it's a component, what do I need? Yep. Next. So Mongo's already imported on the back end, whoever said that. No, we're not going to use Mongoose, so we're just using the Mongo driver. Yeah, so the back end setup, I just want to do the front end fetch request to the back end. That's all I want to do. So I'm on the front end. Ignore the Mongo driver, right? How does the communication work? It works like so we've got our front end essentially, right? That communicates with the back end. The back end communicates with our database, yeah. And then on the way back, the database will communicate with the back end, and then the back end will communicate again with the front end. So the back end bit is where we've got our Mongo driver. Yeah, this is already installed. Our database itself is just sitting in the cloud. So we've got our Mongo driver and we've got our GET request at the moment on the back end. Our GET request handler. Yeah, so I'm concerned now of writing the front end code so that we can make our GET request. So ignore the Mongo driver, that's on the back end, yeah? That's been set up here in our database file on our back end. Our server has also mostly been set up. Yeah, we're connecting to the database. If we make a certain request, we're going to do something with our collection that already exists and send back the results of that query. So back over on the front end, what do I need to do? Fetch, at some stage I need a fetch, yep. Fetch from that one, or fetch to that one. Yep, let's make a component. Functional, class-based, what do you want? Functional. I suppose I better do that. Uh-huh. The fetch here, let's say we just want to call it once for now. So we can import what else up the top? Why do we use the curly braces? Yeah, it's that specific named import, but also it means it's not a default import, yeah? So there is no default thing coming from React called useEffect, because the default thing that comes from React is React. Yeah, there can only be one default thing. So if we want to import anything else from the React module, then we have to use a named import inside of curly braces. Did someone say React.useEffect? Import useEffect. No, so we can just use useEffect now because we've imported it up there. So if we hadn't done that, then we need to say React.useEffect. But now we can just do useEffect. Like that. Yeah. What does useEffect take? A function, yeah. So we can just do an arrow function, yeah. Second argument, if we only want this code to run once, empty array. Dot then do something to it. What do you probably want to do to it? We'll just see whether we're actually getting anything first. So we could say data and just see whether we're actually getting any data first, yeah? Cool. Then we could obviously set that in state, and if we set it in state, we might want to return it Should we create some JSX for it? Yeah. Sorry, I don't know how to use this. So, all right, let's store it in state. Yeah. So we could also use useState. So we could have data and set data. Yeah. What does that equal? Absolutely. Initial data again, I guess we could just set an empty array again, or yeah. Yeah. how about, it's going to get an array of objects, isn't it? What properties does our data in our database have? Let's have a look. Seems it has a user, an email, an age, and a gender, yeah? So I guess we could create a dummy object for user, age, email, what did I say, gender? I'm just going to set all of them to initial so that we know whether we've overwritten that data or not. Oops, not like that. Mistakes? No? Look alright so far? So let's say we want to return a div, and inside that div we want to map over our data. So we could do data.map. Then what? Open brackets. Yep, so maybe let's give it a user. If I stuck them in a paragraph maybe. And inside of the paragraph we could have, just for now, user.name. Yeah. Where's what?
There's no name. User.age.
But if we were, there's no name.
Yeah.
I meant that to be name, I think, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. So without the use effect, hopefully that should display something on our page. We do that as an export default. And then in our app, above the form, we, what's it called? Fetch user data. Oops. Something like that. Yep, so if this is displaying, then we'll leave it there and we'll pick this up just before lunch at 12:15 and actually get it to connect to our database and pull it in. But we've set up the skeleton for it at least, right? Because I'm aware that you need your time to work on other things. So hopefully we should just be displaying a paragraph that says initial inside of it, yeah?
Yeah.
Let's have a look.
I thought you were not going to.
Huh?
We're doing it right. After.
So we're not actually connecting to the database yet and pulling in all that data, but we've set up the skeleton before lunch, Villa. Yeah. So I'm just starting the front end obviously at the moment, but that's all we need. Cool. So we've got initial at the top, right? So we've at least displayed that sort of data. Of course, we could tidy it up quite a bit, but when we fetch, could we quickly uncomment this? Will it work? Let's see what we got set up. So we've got to start all. It's worth a try. I think we're probably missing something, but it is worth a try. Let's have a look at our server. What are our two problems? Oh, still one bracket. 4786. So we're missing a closing bracket. Where does it come from? That one, right? Ooh, it's invoked it as well for me. How do I set my data into the state? Nope. So we've got a set data now, as as Kelly said. Whoa. Connosole, that will definitely be wrong. So let's take our data and we'll use set data. To put in our data, we probably first want to convert it to JSON, I imagine. So d.json, isn't it? d.json. Okay. So hopefully that will put our data in. Proxy error. Definitely won't do that then if it cannot connect to the back end. There's a proxy. Is our back end running? No. Okay. So we'll leave it there. I'll get the back end running and then hopefully we can see everything working as a complete little app. Any questions on like the general format that we're trying to use? So the main things are create your database on Atlas, create a database file that just contains the connect function. Pretty much that's a copy and paste job, yeah, from Atlas itself. Just click on your project, remember, as we did before. Click on your connect. Choose which one you want. We did connect with application, full driver example, then gives you the code to create your connect function. Once you've got that on your server, you essentially wrap your route handlers that deal with database requests inside of your connect function. And then on the front end, just make sure you create a fetch to that same endpoint. Yeah, so your server, when it boots up, will connect to your database and then wait for one of these routes to get hit, one of these requests to get made, and then when that request gets made, it will run the code inside. In this case, look inside the user's collection, retrieve all of the data there, convert it to an array, and send it over the network to the front end. And then we're just writing the code to display it on the front end to actually test it. Right. So we'll pick that up just before lunch. In the meantime, you've got a couple of hours to work on CodeFlix for those that wanted to just finish off up to task 24. Or you can work on whatever else you want, right? You can do a bit of training, you can do a bit of team app in the morning, but we're solely do the team app this afternoon. All right. Cheers, guys.
Okay.